November was packed with revolutions, discoveries, and stories that still echo through our lives today. Before we turn the page into December, let's slow down for a moment and look back at some of the biggest moments we visited this month and what they say about the world we live in now. This month, we saw how often humanity walks a tightrope between war and peace. We revisited the end of a world war and the moment the guns finally fell silent. We watched leaders sit around tense negotiation tables to pull the world back from the edge of nuclear disaster. We saw the fall of walls that once divided entire nations and peace agreements that finally ended brutal conflicts after years of suffering. From international trials that held war criminals accountable to declarations of independence that gave new countries their voice, November reminded us that history is full of people who refused to accept that violence was the final word. Alongside war and peace, November was also a journey through the evolution of rights and equality. We saw children recognized and protected by global declarations. We watched women gain the right to vote, to be ordained, and to be elected to high office. We saw movements for civil rights grow stronger, segregation in everyday life struck down, and new days of remembrance created to stand against violence and injustice. We visited milestones in the fight for racial equality, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ recognition, including early legal protections for same-sex couples and declarations that turned individual struggles into global conversations. Science and exploration were everywhere in this month's stories, too. We watched scientists unlock invisible worlds, from the discovery of rays that can see through the human body, to new ways of understanding radioactivity, galaxies, and the structure of the universe itself. We watched the first tentative steps into space become bold leaps, early rockets testing their power, dogs and humans leaving Earth behind, missions landing on the moon, rovers heading for distant planets, and the beginning of a permanent home orbiting above us. From early experimental flights and balloon journeys to the construction of a massive station in orbit and the launch of rovers designed to explore other worlds, November showed us that curiosity doesn't have a speed limit. Technology and everyday life were transformed again and again in the events we covered. We saw the birth of the microprocessor, the launch of early operating systems, and the first steps toward global computer networks. We watched the very first messages sent across precursor systems to the internet, the arrival of commercial video games, and the early designs of smartphones that would eventually live in everyone's pockets. We saw new ways to communicate, from push-button phones to software that would dominate personal computing for decades. So many of the tools we now take for granted trace their roots back to quiet moments of innovation that happened in November. Culture and entertainment also had a massive presence this month. We revisited iconic debuts in animation, film, and television. The rise of a small animated mouse who became a global symbol, the premiere of groundbreaking animated and live-action films, the arrival of a sci-fi series that would run for generations, and the launch of movies that changed how stories could be told with computers. We remembered classic albums that redefined music, pop songs that became generational anthems, and artists whose lives and deaths left a permanent mark on fans around the world. November showed us how stories, whether told on stage, on screen, or through speakers, can shape identity, comfort us in hard times, and connect people across borders and languages. Of course, not every story from this month was uplifting. We also revisited tragedies, disasters that changed safety rules forever, terrorist attacks that shook cities and nations, cult tragedies that forced hard questions about power and belief, and moments of political violence that cut short the lives of leaders. As heavy as these stories are, weaving them into the month's narrative matters. They remind us that memory is not just about celebration. It is about learning, honoring victims, and trying to make sure the same mistakes are not repeated. So what does all of this mean as we step into December? If November was a month of turning points, December is where many of those arcs continue or come to a close. In the coming weeks, we'll explore stories behind global days of awareness and health, events that shaped the course of world wars, and moments that changed how countries see themselves and each other. We'll look at breakthroughs in flight and technology, from early experiments that proved powered flight was possible to later achievements that pushed the boundaries of what humans can build and where we can go. We'll revisit powerful stories of independence, revolutions, and the reshaping of political maps, as well as the quieter but no less important milestones in art, music, and culture that arrived as the year wound down in different eras. You can also expect December to bring a mix of heavier historical moments and more festive or surprising ones. There will be events tied to conflict, treaties, and the end or beginning of eras, but also stories connected to holidays, iconic releases in film and music, and inventions that changed how we celebrate, travel, and live together. Just like November, December will be about balance, light and dark, joy and grief, endings and beginnings. As we move from one month to the next, that's really the heart of this channel. Using the past not just as a list of events, but as a mirror. Every revolution, every discovery, every law, every song, and every launch says something about who we were and who we are still becoming. November showed us how much can happen in just 30 days of history. December will show us how years often end with both reflection and transformation. If you've enjoyed traveling through time with these daily moments, stay with me as we cross into the next month. We'll keep exploring the stories behind the headlines, connecting dots between different eras, and finding the human side of history, one day at a time. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss the first episodes of December, and tell me in the comments which November story stayed with you the most. The month is changing, the calendar is turning, but the past is always waiting to be rediscovered. Let's step into December together.